spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers. Sling up the news, cut out your guts, drown in a pool, show 'em your nuts. That's how we do the poor little rich boy waltz. Welcome to another fun-packed thrill ride of an episode of Max Mike Movies, the podcast that's stuffed with vitamins and iron and has the thrilling taste of Retsin. Isn't It Romantic is our latest series as we romp through rom-coms, deciding if these little bites of love still make us all tingly in the feet, or if they're just old burgers rotting in their sacks. Or something.
In their sack. Please don't say sacks.
Sack. Harold and Maude is this week's pick, a movie from 1971 about a young man and the love of his life, a 79-year-old woman. No, I'm not kidding. Is this movie fun? Is it believable? Is it even tasteful? All these questions and more will be answered by your two hosts. That one over there is the Baron Karza of bad taste, Micronauts Max Levine.
I will crush you all!
And I am the winking weeble who doesn't know the meaning of the phrase, fall down. Magnadoodle Mike Luce is my name, and as well of that we have trivia. The show.
Baron Karza, I can't believe you made a Micronauts reference.
Somebody had to.
I had a Baron Karza. He was
so
awesome.
Did I. He was awesome. Especially, did you get the part where you could turn him into the centaur?
Well, why else would you get him?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of trivia, that is trivia, but nothing to do with Harold and Maude. So let's talk about Harold and Maude.
Oh, do let's.
Budget, $1.2 million. Take, no idea, but it was not good. I could not find it anywhere. Basically, they just said it bombed. In most places. This would be an example of a movie that becomes a cult favorite. One theater in Minnesota had it play 2,000 shows.
Oh, sure.
Eventually, people picketed to get the theater to change the movie. But it was very popular. People kept coming back and seeing it over and over again. It would not start making a profit until 1983.
Oh.
Which would only be 12 years after it was released. A May-December relationship, the star, Bud Cort, lived one of his own. For a while, he couch-surfed with real-life friend and December buddy, Groucho Marx.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
That's not a May-December romance, or was it?
No.
Yeah. Oh, man, Bud Cort and Groucho Marx. That must have been some weird late-night conversations.
Yeah. He apparently knew a bunch of old-time Hollywood people and just was friends with them. I think he might have even been friends with Orson Welles. Don't quote me on that one, but sure. Yes. Director Hal Ashby, a name I was not familiar with, made this as well as some other fairly well-known movies like Shampoo, Being There, and 3 films about the Rolling Stones. Because you do.
Yeah.
Paramount, the distributor of this film, refused to allow Ashby to shoot any intimate scenes between the two principals. They thought that would be bad. Yeah. In the movie, Ruth Gordon's character, Maude, doesn't have a license as she, quote, doesn't believe in them, end quote. In real life, Ruth Gordon never learned to drive.
I heard about that. Any scenes you see of her driving, they're towing the car.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you see her in the car, from afar, it must have been a stunt Ruth.
Yeah.
But I was perfectly willing to believe the way they were driving it was her, but yeah. Ages in this film, Bud Cort, who plays Harold, is 23. Ruth Gordon, who plays Maude, was 74. The American Film Institute ranked this as number 9 in its list of top 10 rom-coms.
Oh.
So there.
Yeah.
Oddly, Elton John was considered for the role of Harold. So was Richard Dreyfuss. I kid you not. Yes. Elton John, you have to remember, 71, so Elton John was new on the scene at this point. And what they were hoping was, hey, we can get this Elton John guy, and maybe we can get him to do music for the film.
Well.
But he was none available at the time. The poor Jaguar, which is turned into a hearse at one point, is actually destroyed at the end of the movie. There was no stunt Jaguar. It gave its life so that we might have ours.
I wanted that car. When I first saw this movie, that was the first thing I thought is, I want a Jaguar hearse.
That is the E-Type. That is, by many people, considered the most beautiful car ever made.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was awfully pretty.
It really is. The original script was written as a master's thesis by Colin Higgins. After the movie, Higgins rewrote it as both a novel and a successful play. Speaking of Higgins, he wanted to do both a prequel and a sequel to this movie, the latter focusing on Harold after Maude, the other Maude before Harold. His idea for the sequel included using Richard Pryor's character Grover Muldoon, who was from, I think, Silver Streak, which he also wrote the screenplay for.
Oh, all right.
Teaching Maude how to steal cars. He would have cast both actors to reprise their roles.
Ruth Gordon and Richard Pryor. I would have paid to see that movie.
Yep, I think a lot of people would. I generally am not a fan of prequels and sequels if they were not like originally part of the story. Star Wars, I'm looking right at you. But this, I might have made a what's the word? The thing
Exception. Exception.
That word. Old age does not agree with me. Oh, yeah, there goes another one. Roger Ebert gave this film 1.5 stars.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, Raj.
Oh, Raj. Oh, rerun.
Oh, Dwayne.
Do you have any trivia you know about this film? Because it was fairly scant.
Not a great deal. I do know that Cat Stevens actually wrote the song, which was one of his best known. If you want to sing out, sing out. He wrote it for this movie.
Yeah. He was actually supposed to write, there was supposed to be a couple more songs written for the film, but he just didn't have time, and they were using his original songs, ones that had already been released, as sort of the, what do they call that? The clip track. And eventually, since Cat Stevens ran out of time, they're like, we'll just license these. So.
Yeah, excuse me, Yusuf Islam.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
I'm still sorry about that.
He turned into a jerk, but my God, his music is so fun in this movie, and it's so appropriate, but we'll get to that.
All right, so we can't just leave it there, because otherwise people are going to think, oh, you just don't like Muslims, blah, blah, blah. No, so, Cat Stevens, well-known British pop star, very well-known songs, really good songs, converted to Islam, which is fine. He changed his name to Yusuf Islam, which fine. I guess that's something that's part of conversion. I don't know.
Can be. Doesn't have to be.
He was one of the biggest voices in favor of the fatwa placed on Salman Rushdie when Satanic Verses came out. He has since backed off and said maybe I was a little overexuberant.
Right. Maybe it was a little overexuberant calling for the murder of a guy who wrote a book.
Right. So that's... Yeah. And he basically walked away from music. I'm not doing this. He has since walked back into music, and I think he actually goes more by Yusuf Stevens now, which is to reflect that. But anyway, just didn't want people to think that it had anything to do with the religion. It had everything to do with his actions. Yeah. He could have stayed Cat Stevens and done those actions, and I'd still be sore.
He could have converted to Muslimism. Converted to Islam. That would have been fine. Yeah. Just he didn't have to he didn't have to be a jerk.
Yeah. Did you ever read Satanic Verses? I don't even know what it's about.
I tried once. Honestly, I couldn't get into it. I'm just not a big Salman Rushdie fan.
And here's the thing. If they hadn't made that whole thing, probably most people wouldn't have never heard of the book, but whatever.
Well, not necessarily. Apparently, it was very widely read even before the controversy.
Hey, if you know anything about this book, email us. Yeah. Anything else you know?
Well, yes, and of course there was some. The main thing was I think it portrays the Prophet Muhammad as a real person, as a being, and people objected to that. That the old joke was this. Then you can read his sequel, Buddha: The Life of a Fat Jerk.
Probably not factually accurate. But any other trivia you know about Harold and Maude?
No, a little bit about Bud Cort. Bud Cort appears all over the place. Many people think like this is his only movie.
You mean by that me?
Except it really isn't. I first saw him in Robert Altman's MASH. He has a very small part. Yeah. He only has like 1 or 2 lines. But he's actually very noticeable because he has that weird... Even then he has that weird, creepy little boy's face. Even though he's at least 18.
My note was he looks like the Star Child from 2001. Sadly, it's just not fair, but there you go. Yeah, no, he would show up in very weird places. Films that I'm like, I have seen and like, I don't know how I missed him, like Pollock, one of my favorite films. He's in that. He's in Coyote Ugly. He is in Dogma. He also shows up in animated films such as Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. But he was in The Life Aquatic.
He's worked steadily for the last 50 years. Yep.
Apparently, he does a lot of stage as well. Like that's one of his big things. But
that was the thing. That was the thing with Ruth Gordon. Is Ruth Gordon started out as a stage actor,
right?
And eventually and again, we talked. She was the one who wrote, or she and her husband wrote our last week's movie, Pat and Mike.
Right.
She won an Oscar for writing. She won the Oscar for the screenplay for Adam's Rib, and she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress from, it was either Inside Daisy Miller or Rosemary's Baby, I forget which. She is really creepy in Rosemary's Baby, by the way.
I can believe it. I actually can. So, let's get to the plot for those of us who haven't seen this, because I hadn't, but... Harold is a young man with a ton of money and a mother who seems as bored of him as he is of life. Trying to get her attention with a series of fake suicides, all done just for a laugh, of course, he finally feels the cold, hard grip of inevitability when his mother decides to start getting dates for him so he can get married. Through computer dating, which was actually a thing in 1971.
Yeah, this was sort of the ancient ancestor of Match.com or eHarmony or Tinder.
Yeah, this one involved punch cards. If you don't know what a punch card is, look it up, because I ain't going into it.
Yeah.
Harold can't stomach this, so goes to do one of his favorite activities, attend funerals. There, he catches the eye of Maude, an older woman who seems to be doing the same thing as he, though for her own reasons. The second time they meet, she invites Harold back to her place in a car she's stolen from the priest. There they sort of get to know each other, but Harold falls back into his old habits. A forced conversation with his uncle, a war veteran, army-crazy career man, makes his future seem even bleaker. Another meeting with Maude, this time with her stealing Harold's car, seems to wake him up a little bit more. Then, a little bit more. Suddenly, Harold's spending all his free time with Maude, seeing life from a new perspective. Slowly, he falls in love with her, and she, in her own way, loves him. Was this relationship meant to be? Can it stand the test of time? Or will this movie inspire the ending of Thelma and Louise? Maybe all things are possible. Maybe life is beautiful. Maybe I'll just stop dropping movie titles and end this thing.
Thank you.
The Lowdown.
Oh, by the way, there is one other bit of trivia I forgot.
I gave you your chance.
Too bad. I'm doing it anyway.
Kick him.
Try it, you mutant Shetland pony. As you say, he runs into Maude at a couple of funerals. At the second funeral, the one where they're outside, Cat Stevens is actually in the shot there.
Yeah,
he's the guy.
And the
director's in there too. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, he's in a shot at the arcade.
Right. But yeah. So you had never seen this movie ever?
No. So this film. All right. So there used to be a theater. It's just sadly gone. Called the Harvard Square Theater, that Max and I were both big devotees for. No, I wasn't as big as Max. There. I was going to say, if you'd let me finish.
Why would I ever let you finish?
You never do. Max was a bigger devotee because he worked there. Poor Max. He had to do the strip search for the Rocky Horror Picture
Oh, God. It wasn't a strip search, but I did actually, before they realized that it was illegal, I had to pat people down.
Yeah.
To collect the many, many forms of alcohol people tried to bring into the theater.
Well, that too, but of course for Rocky Horror, it's like you can't have any glass bottles. It's like, okay, we'll get our plastic water bottles and then just wing them over our head during the wedding scene, but whatever. Yep. The Harvard Square Theater spent most of its life as a absolutely wonderful repertoire movie theater, meaning, in their case, that they had what was called a daily double feature. That meant that every day, 2 new films were playing in the, at that point, main theater. There were 2 of them.
New.
Well, yeah.
They were mostly old, they were classic movies, usually.
Well, new meaning like it would switch up every day.
Yeah, true.
And if you're lucky, there would be a triple feature, like they had James Bond triple features. Now,
or Marx Brothers, yep.
Yeah, the best part about this is that films that you would otherwise never get to see on a big screen, you got to see on a big screen.
Yep.
Monty Python films, I know another one of their favorites was Dr. Strangelove. That got shown a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yellow Submarine, Wizards, James Bond films.
Gallipoli, Year of Living Dangerously.
But I remember Harold and Maude making this circuit many times. It was a darling. And I'm sure other repertoire...
That's where I saw it. That's where I first saw it.
Yeah. Well, you would have been, what, like 9 when it came out?
Yeah, I was very young. I was way too young for that movie.
Yeah. So this was a film that I remember that they would bring back many, many times because it was that. And as we said, it was a cult favorite. And this is how the film eventually made money, was before there were things like VHS and DVD and Blu-ray. This was one of those films. And I didn't know enough about it at the time, and I thought it was actually going to be a lot stranger than it actually was. And so I was like, I don't really want that brand of weird, so I never went to see it. But yeah, so that's the deal with that. I don't know why it doesn't really have any bearing on the film, except that it played for decades, quite honestly. And if the Harvard Score was still open and still doing its daily double feature, it would probably still be showing.
I'm sure it would.
So we also talked about Cat Stevens. If you don't know his music, look it up. It is really good singer-songwriter stuff. If you're of that genre, if you like that kind of music, it's prime. I'm sure he's influenced tons of other musicians, songwriters. And it made this film feel a lot like 2 other big, well-known films, which are The Graduate and Magnolia, both of them also had one person do music for the entire film.
Yep, this is one of those movies where the soundtrack is a character.
Which actually shows up at the funeral. Now, you're but you're a fan of Cat Stevens' work.
I am. Yeah, I liked his old stuff. I mean, I can't say I knew all of his stuff, but I knew Tifa the Tillerman and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
I had completely forgotten how much of his music was in this movie.
Like lots, there's like 7 or 8 tracks. Yeah,
it's a whole bunch. And I think it worked, and it was really nice to hear again. And it's hard to separate him from the political stuff.
Yeah.
But if you can just sit back and take in the music, it works really well. It really helps create the atmosphere of the movie.
Interestingly, as I said, I had not seen it. Now, you'd seen this before, like maybe when it was at the Harvard School. You said you did, so sometime in the 80s, probably.
Probably, but I'd seen it more recently. I think in the 90s too.
So I think I have an interesting perspective here, and you may share this, but I'm watching this film, and because it has that type of music and it's one performer doing it, the film, in a way, feels very current. If you're looking at indie films, they have a feeling like this, and the more I watched this film, the more I'm like, oh, so this is where Wes Anderson comes from.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like movies like Juno and such, I think they owe a lot to Harold and Maude.
Yeah.
At least especially with the idea of the way they use the music.
Well, the music is one thing. The quirkiness, the quirky characters, that because we talked about that when we talked about Rushmore, how Wes Anderson wanted that feeling of heightened reality. You definitely have that here. But quite honestly, some of the shots, he has these shots of these straight on, the camera angle doesn't change. It doesn't zoom in. There's none of it. Just straight on, people left and right. And I'm just like, dear gods, this is like the textbook if you want to become Wes Anderson. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, even to the little points of most of the time, no one looks at the camera. Harold does a couple of times, very briefly. And it's for some reason, it's not jarring. I mean, like when his first date, Candy... runs away.
Yeah.
Because I think he has just hacked his own. He has convinced her that he's just chopped his own hand off with a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
He just turns and gives this little smile to the camera.
Yeah. It's. I just was very surprised because of that. Yeah, everything's obviously 70s, the clothes and the cars and the settings or whatever, but it just felt like you could release this now and people would go see it because it has that quirky indie feel to it, specifically a very Wes Anderson kind of feel.
Kind of, except it's a little darker and grimmer than Wes Anderson stuff, at least as far as all of the fake suicides that Harold keeps staging. I mean, the very opening scene, and we don't know he's faking it. We basically we hardly see his face. We just see his legs. In the neck now. We see his legs, his shoes, and he appears to hang himself in his mother's office or something. And the part that then tips you off is her utter lack of reaction. That she comes in, she's on the phone, she glances up, sees him, doesn't lose the flow of her conversation at all. Even when he starts to pretend to choke loudly. His mother is hilarious. She's horrible. Yeah. She's an awful, awful person. She's kind of cartoonish, really, as some of the characters are.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious.
It is. She's really funny. The best part is, like, he's making these fake choking noises, and you can tell at one point they get insistent.
Yep.
Like,
and we do find out why he does this. It was like, at one point in his childhood, he accidentally created an explosion in a science lab at a school, and he was reported dead. And he goes home, and his mother finds out that he's alive, and she faints. So that was like the only time he gets a real reaction from her is when she thinks he's dead.
Right.
And I think he's decided he's more interesting dead than alive.
Well, I think it's probably a lot to do with he wants affection. He wants love. And his mother, they have this ridiculously giant house that the two of them live in alone with servants.
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of money. It's like he literally can have anything he wants. And all he wants is he wants love. And his mother's not giving it to him. And so he keeps doing these suicides to try and get something out of her. And she's seen it all. Yep. And everything he tries, no matter how gruesome it is, she's just like, she rolls her eyes or she gets a little uptight. Like, clean this up. We have things to do.
What's kind of the only time she gets upset is when he appears to have cut his throat and it's just there's fake blood everywhere, and she seems to be most upset about the mess.
Yeah. There's actually a great quote that describes Harold. It's from a Police song. It's incredibly apropos. It's from a Police song called Synchronicity 2. It's actually about the character in the song's mother, but if you insert Harold for mother, the line from the song is, "Mother chants her litany of boredom and frustration, but we know all her suicides are fake." And that's kind of Harold.
Kind of. So while he's kind of odd that way, and he's obviously supposed to be quirky, there's a real ineffable sadness about him, because obviously he's obsessed with death because life has nothing in it. There's nothing in life for him.
No. Well,
until he meets Maude.
Well, then I think he goes to the funerals because he wants the idea of people caring that much about him that they're sad, right?
I can see that, yeah. He wants to see an actual expression of emotion.
And then he meets Maude. And the interesting thing is she's going to funerals of people she doesn't know either. And she's doing it for an incredibly different reason.
Yeah.
Her reasoning is not as clear to me, but she actually seems to take joy from it, where he just sits there and wallows in his own sadness.
He sees it as a time to see people's grief. She sees it as an expression of love.
Yeah.
That she's saying, look at this. Look at all these people showing how much they love this person who is gone.
And then, because she didn't have a ride to get there, she steals cars to leave.
And my God, that woman is a carjacking master.
Well, she's got this ring of keys that fit any car.
Yeah. She's got basically a magic ring of keys. She can hotwire or somehow start anything instantly, including, I believe, a police officer's motorcycle. Unless he left the key in, we're not sure. But
I was willing to believe that he did.
Yeah.
Do you know who that was?
Who? Which was? The cop?
The cop, yeah.
Who?
I didn't put this in trivia. It's an actor by the name of Tom Skerritt.
That was Tom Skerritt?
Yeah, he didn't want his name credited.
Oh my God.
So he's credited, this is really weird. Yeah. He credits himself as M. Borman.
That's what I saw, yeah.
Do you know where that name comes from?
I hope it's not Martin Bormann.
I'm afraid it is.
Oh, God!
Not because he was in any way... Yes, not because he was aligned with him, and I forget what the story was, but he picked... I think he said it as a joke. Like, yeah, just credit me as Martin Bormann, or as M. Bormann. Wow. And they were like, okay, and just did it.
I would not have thought it was him, because, my God, he's got this big 70s porn stash.
Yeah.
And you don't really see his face. He's wearing a Chips helmet and sunglasses the whole time.
It's a great scene in the film where they've stolen an El Camino, because she's seen a tree on a sidewalk that's not doing well. It's dying. So she decides, even though it's obviously city property, they need to go replant it in the forest.
So they steal the car, they steal the tree.
And she's driving probably 60 miles an hour down a 35 or 40. And a motorcycle cop pulls her over. Well, he tries to. And as soon as the guy gets off the bike and comes around to the window, and she's like, "Can I see your license?" "Oh, I don't have one. I don't believe in them." "Is this your car?" "Oh, no." And he's like, "I need you to go over this again." "Oh, good. We've got this straight. Thank you. Bye." And she takes off.
And he's just like, "What the hell?" And then he sees her again.
Yeah.
And this time, okay, get out of the car. And while he's looking in the car, they steal his motorcycle.
Yep. Because, sure.
And I'm sitting there going, well, she's lucky it was California Highway Patrol and not LAPD, because otherwise he would have just shot them.
Well, he tries to, and then realizes that, oh, that's right, it's my turn to play Barney Fife. And I think he probably would have shot at them, but not shot near
maybe.
them. No.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maude, so she is a hoot, and she can tell that there's something up with Harold. I mean, it doesn't take much, especially when you see somebody at two different funerals.
Yeah, she recognizes it. And she is, oh my God, I have in my notes, I want to meet a Maude,
Yeah, I just said she's a hoot.
She is a hoot, and she has lived a life. I mean, she talks about, we get hints, she came from Austria, she was in Austria, during World War I, and at one point, it's a throwaway, they never mention it. Harold sees her arm, and she has a number tattooed on it.
Right.
Means she was at Auschwitz.
Yep, specifically at Auschwitz. I went and looked it up just in case, but it's specifically Auschwitz, and it was specifically for people that were actually chosen to do work.
Yeah, because when they dropped dead, they needed a way to identify the bodies.
Right. And I thought about this, and I looked it up. She would actually have been 54 at the end of World War II, which is a rarity, because often people like that didn't make it at all. Yeah,
no, she was a survivor. She got through all sorts. We also know there was someone in her life, was it Frederick? Friedrichs,
maybe something like
that. We don't really know. We just know we can tell by the way she talks about him that he's dead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, this is one of my talking points, since you bring it in so nicely. It's the only time we see a break in Maude's armor. Otherwise, Maude looks like she can handle anything. She laughs at anything life can throw at her, except at that point that you just brought up.
She remembered, that memory is the only memory that makes her at all sad. I don't think it's a break in the armor. It's just part of her humanity. But she is determined to live her life in joy. She's going to savor everything. And as we find out, her plot is she's 79 and she has decided she is going to die on her 80th birthday.
Yeah.
And she doesn't make a thing out of this at all.
No. It's a tossed away comment.
Nope, it's just going to happen.
Do you think there was anything, because she starts to tear up in a way that you look and go, wow, that's a real actor, because you see her do it. It's not like, oh, cutaway, glycerin, and then she's, the tears are coming from the wrong part of your eye.
Yeah.
Do you think there was anything, did you get a feeling there was something specifically behind? What I see is a little bit as armor, but you don't, but that's fine. Do you think there was something even she couldn't talk about?
I think so. I think maybe it was Auschwitz, but maybe it was just the loss of her husband.
Yeah.
I think that there is some pain that if she focused on it, she wouldn't be able to feel the joy. Maybe and she doesn't deny it.
No.
Because she's willing to bring it up. She doesn't pretend it didn't happen. But that's not what she wants to focus on. She wants to focus on living life. And I love the things they do with color in this movie. At the second funeral, when they're outdoors and it's raining, everyone else it's been black, and they have these black umbrellas, and she's got this bright yellow umbrella that stands out, and it's just so perfect.
Well, there's a lot of scenes in this film, a lot of shots that just feel like paintings.
Yeah.
Like they're incredibly well composed and just pictorial beyond belief. So it has that weird 70s, well, we've had enough of color, let's sort of tone things down a bit. It's not as bad as, like, The French Connection. The French Connection, there's like, we hate color!
Welcome to the beige world.
Yeah, but the way that the director here, whose name, of course, I've already forgotten, Ashby?
Oh, yeah, Hal Ashby, I think.
Hal Ashby. The way he and his cinematographer compose shots in certain cases is just gorgeous.
Some of it is just so beautiful to look at.
Yeah. So we see Maude, as Max has said, is a character we'd both love to meet. And she can tell there's something up with Harold, and she, during the funeral, she's going psst, 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 to the annoyance of everybody else trying to get his attention. And she does this at the second funeral. And I got to say, that priest, boy, he's busy because
we see him the same one.
Yeah, we see him a couple of times, and she finally just is like, this kid needs something, so she tries to bring Harold back to her house, and eventually she succeeds. She doesn't live in a house. She lives in a train car.
Yeah, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Everything in the place is beautiful, but it's not like beautiful like Harold's house, where, again, all I ever think of is Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the description of Cameron's house. It's like a museum. It's very beautiful and very cold, and you're not allowed to touch anything.
Yeah.
And her house is like, you are supposed to touch everything. You are supposed to pick things up. You're supposed to sit on things. I love that she has this cabinet just full of random musical instruments.
Yeah.
And what does she choose? She said, when Harold says he doesn't know how to play anything, she says, oh, what would be good for you? She gives him a banjo. Because when you see this suicide-obsessed, depressed kid, you think banjo.
At first, it was going to be one of those El Mariachi giant guitar things. And it's like, okay.
It's like, no, it's the... And Steve Martin said it best. He said, it is impossible to play a depressing song on the banjo. And he does, oh, death and grief and sorrow and murder. And it does not work. The banjo is just too happy and cheerful.
Yeah. Real quick question. This was not a talking point. I just wondered, how old do you think Harold's supposed to be?
I think he's supposed to be very early 20s. I think it's obviously he's graduated from high school. He's probably graduated from college. But I can't think that he's more than like 21, 22.
I was thinking like even 18 or 19.
And I thought he was a little older than that because, his mother wants him to get married.
Well, that's why it was so shocking. I wondered if it was supposed to... Like, at first I thought he was supposed to be about 16. And then he drives, and it's like, okay, he on his own. So he's like, maybe not. But that's why I thought the marriage thing was such a shock. It's like, you want him to do what?
And she just wants him to get married because that'll give him something to do.
Well, it'll solve her problem.
Yeah, it'll basically get him out of her hair. And I love the women that she picks for him, or that the computer picks for him. It's like, wow, it's like this is opposite day.
Yeah.
Because they seem perfectly nice, but clearly utterly wrong and utterly freaked out by him, except for Sunshine.
Yeah.
That is a very odd scene. The last woman he meets, Sunshine, she's an actress, and when he appears to commit harikiri in front of her, she immediately knows that it's fake. She knows he's acting, and that freaks him out. I am, however, not entirely... I wanted to ask you what you think. At the end of that scene, it's clear he's using a trick knife. In fact, she even plays with the blade to show it, and she wants to play too, so she starts doing very badly. Juliet's speech from Romeo and Juliet, Act 5, Scene 5, her death speech, find a sheath hero dagger or some such. It looks like she actually stabs herself. I am not sure, because we know it's a trick knife, but maybe she didn't operate it properly? What do you think?
Initially, I wasn't sure either. My thought was that no. And the reason is because the movie would have gotten way too complicated at that point. And his mom, while she may have money, I don't think is smart enough to figure a way of sweeping that under the rug. I think what happens is Harold is mostly shocked because somebody not only figures out he's playing a game, but instantly learns how to play it. And that's
I love his mother's reaction, who comes in and sees ostensibly that his date is dead, and her only line is, "Harold, that was your last date."
Yeah. Harold's an interesting kid.
Yeah.
There's no mention of his father, so we don't know if there was one at some point, how long.
Or maybe he was just created by the midichlorians. We don't know.
Let's not bring those up again, dear gods. But she seems very used to the money. Like, we see one little party she's giving, and she's the dame of the house. She's the society matron.
I wondered about that. I know what you're saying. Like you think she's old money.
Yeah, I think she is.
All of that speaking French and trying desperately to be so chic. I wondered if she wasn't. I wondered if this was new to her and she was just desperately trying to seem like old money. We don't really know.
I'd say no, only because we never see her showing any kind of shaky confidence.
All right, that's true. She does have that kind of invincible self-assurance that comes with old money.
Now, the one thing I will give her as a character, now she's a terrible mother, but when the dates show up, none of them make any money. Like, one of them is literally a secretary that does, I think it's cattle feed. She gets all of the Southwest, well, not all of it, but the Southwest, all the cattle's fed because all of the paperwork goes through her desk. And she drives a VW Beetle. So it's obvious she's not even close. And that doesn't seem to bother the mother, which I thought
Candy is a struggling actress, and I think the other one is a student. Yeah, Sunshine, sorry. And that's true. It's not that she's trying to find him a girl of good breeding.
No.
But it's also she cannot be bothered to try to find someone for him, so she's using a computer dating service. And she's filling out the questionnaire the way she would. Yeah. Not she doesn't listen to she didn't give Harold a chance to answer. Of course, he's sitting there playing with a fake gun, pretending to, or maybe it's fake, pretending to shoot himself or her.
Yeah. I one of my favorite suicides is the swimming pool. He's face down, floating in the pool. She comes down. His mom comes down to do her daily routine of swimming. Doesn't notice him at first. She gets into the pool and notices him and just swims right by him. And there's this great shot from in the pool under the water. And you see him face down and she swims by. And he lowers his head to watch her go by and just has this really pissed off expression.
Yep.
Meanwhile, he has not moved. His arms are still out by his sides and he's just floating. And
you got to give Harold credit. His suicide attempts are not only convincing, they're very technically skillful. They're very well done. You get the feeling this kid is pretty good. He's like, he must have some kind of native engineering skill.
There's a marketable skill.
I know, not exactly. Although we do see that he actually can his mother gives him a Jaguar because the car he buys he literally buys a used hearse.
A Cadillac hearse.
A Cadillac hearse, which is apparently now a really sought after collector's item.
Yeah.
And he somehow merges it with the Jaguar. He makes a Jaguar hearse, which I thought when I saw that, and I was pretty young, I was like, that is the coolest car I have ever seen in my life. Forget James Bond. Forget the Aston Martin. I want a Jaguar hearse. I thought that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah. Apparently that Cadillac, I saw that too. There was just they happened to pick one of the rarest model hearses, and that's the one they had in the film. That one doesn't go over a cliff, but sadly the Jaguar later would, in a very Thelma and Louise moment, does in fact go over the cliff.
We should mention there are other characters in the movie. I mean, Harold has a therapist who is, oh my God, such a 70s therapist. I love the first scene when he's in therapy. They're both dressed identically, down to the necktie or the cravat or whatever the hell he was wearing.
I thought it was interesting that they're not facing each other. They're sitting in two wing chairs that are slightly angled towards each other, but he's not, there is a couch. We see later he's on the couch, but he's not on the couch. And it just felt very businesslike and pointless, which I guess is what he thought of it.
And then there's his uncle, I think Victor. Oh boy, who is this gung-ho soldier who is so gung-ho, he lost his arm in World War, I think it was World War II, although they don't really say.
Yeah.
He's a little young to be World War II. It might have been Korea.
Well, you have to remember it was only 26 years ago, and he's probably closing in on 50.
Yeah,
so
true. Could have been World War II. And he has this rig where his empty sleeve is on a wire that if he pulls it, the arm salutes. The empty sleeve salutes. Now, and he really is a cartoon character. He is so gung-ho. He's yelling about how, damn it, I miss when the Germans were the enemies, and now they're our friends. We should have them on the other side of the fence because they were great enemies.
He is a rabid conservative, right-wing army guy. And The best part, I think, is at some point his mom decides, well, that's it. I can't get you married. You're crazy. I'm going to make you join the military, which, of course, wouldn't really work because he has to sign the. But whatever.
Well, he says they're going to draft me, and this was 1971. The draft for the Vietnam War was still in effect.
Oh yes, very much so.
Very much, but. I don't think a private citizen could force the draft board, no matter how much money you have, to draft someone.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't know what to do. And he talks to Maude about it. And obviously Maude gives him the idea. She's like, she doesn't say this. We never hear the plan, but the plan is obvious. You need to out crazy your uncle.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
He does!
It's really funny because it's first the uncle's like, oh, yes, somebody thinks like me. This is great. This is great. You need to tone down. No, wait. Whoa, no, Harold, no way. What have you done?
Yes, because Maude shows up as a fake protester with a sign that just says peace.
Yeah.
And Harold apparently murders her.
Yeah.
and that puts the end to nope.
Yeah. I think also, too, that's one of the things that just utterly cemented Maude in Harold's heart is like she totally understands his point of view and is willing to do crazy crap, although she does crazier crap than he does to get the point across.
You know, this is a very strange thing to say about a character who is supposed to be 79, but this just occurred to me. Tell me what you think. I have in my notes here, I think Maude is a manic pixie dream girl.
What?
I think she's a manic pixie dream girl, that trope that was so big in the movies of the last 20 years or so. She is this woman who seems crazy in some ways, but who takes the protagonist who is stuck in a rut and forces him out of his comfort zone with crazy actions that everything seems to be focused on him. While she's also concealing an unusual past and in some ways becomes everything he needs.
Can you give me an example? Not of this movie, but of a pixie dream girl.
Oh, boy.
Movie? You brought it up.
Sure, Ramona Flowers in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Okay.
Oh, God, there are...
Sadly, she did not make Michael Cera less Michael Cera.
Well, no, but she put up with Michael Cera, and
which is a lot.
That was a fantasy right there.
Now, to be fair, Michael Cera's probably a very nice person, but his persona on most films leans towards the moist.
I mean, some people say Natalie Portman in Garden State, or, well, probably this is an older one. I'm looking at lists of examples. Katharine Hepburn in Bringing Up Baby.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, obviously she's an older woman as opposed to a younger woman, but she definitely has that pixie-like quality. I mean, she has one of the first, she talks about, she's an artist, so she shows him her paintings. It's like, oh, and then I went to sculpture, and there's this sculpture. I'm not going to talk about what's going on, but it's quite obvious. It's meant to be touched, and it is quite obvious what's going on. And it is potentially the lewdest scene in the film, except that it's just a piece of wood, except it's not.
Yeah.
But then...
It's, I think, Georgia O'Keeffe, but in 3 dimensions.
And you're supposed to touch it.
Yeah.
And you stick your head in it, and this is Kiz's case. But she also has this wonderful machine I totally want, which is basically a machine that reproduces the smells of places.
Yes, that was so cool.
Her favorite one is winter in New York City. And he's smelling it, and he's pulling out these scents. Oh, Subway, I forget. And then he finally says
dogs.
Snow. Yeah, he says, I smell snow. And she's delighted. And it's just like this Mr. Majorium kind of machine.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like she's invented smell-o-vision.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say she fits that. Yeah. I wouldn't call it a trope in this. Well, I guess it... Is it? I guess can't be. I guess it's pre-trope. It's not pre-first use because Katharine Hepburn goes back a lot further than this.
But it fits the trope that a lot of people say it got really overused.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if it's always helping the guy.
Yeah,
right. Especially the white guy. But
that's the most common. Like basically, think Zooey Deschanel in anything.
Okay, I got a question for you. One of my other talking points. So they wouldn't allow them to fill any intimate scenes.
Yeah.
There is, however, one scene where it's quite obvious, they're in bed, but it's quite obvious that at least on the top, Neither of them's wearing anything. Strangely, very unexpected to me, Bud Cort has a Batman logo size chest hair carpet.
Yes, he has a soul patch on his chest, basically.
Yeah, it like literally goes shoulder to shoulder. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. Do you think they actually had sex?
I do.
Okay.
I absolutely do. In fact, the director wanted to show that, but the studio said, no.
Yeah. Which is too bad.
What did you think the fireworks were supposed to symbolize? Because right before they wake up together, there's fireworks.
Yeah. It leads to a scene later in the film where he's decided he wants to marry her. And they make him talk to this priest, the same priest who's had his car stolen.
Yep.
And the priest, the guy who's playing them, does such a brilliant job.
Oh, God.
He is discussing the reasons why Harold shouldn't marry Maude because she's older, but he's describing the physical reasons that he would not want to be in bed with her. And each word has about 10 seconds between it and takes about 10 seconds to say. And it's just hilarious. I was laughing my ass off.
That was hilarious, and it's so creepy. And the thing is, you instantly know everything you need to about this priest.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, yeah, he and the altar boys. Mm-hmm.
But
he's just so awful. But he's on screen. He has like 2 lines.
Yeah,
he nails it.
I actually know him from. Actually, interestingly, both Ruth Gordon and the actor who played the priest there would be in separate episodes of Columbo, but a lot of people would. So. I also, if you juxtapose the scene of them in the next morning, the morning after, and that description by the priest, what you realize is, on the surface, if you want to be two-dimensional, I'm sure you could sit there and go, wow, a young body and an old body together, wow, that just, ugh. But it's also obvious that that's not what Harold sees. What he sees is, he sees Maude as the person. Yeah. And he loves her, and that's all that matters. And that way, it actually makes it even sweeter.
It is. It's something very beautiful about that moment.
Yeah. And it's funny because like the whole idea is that this is creepy. I really wasn't creeped out at all.
No, I don't know how it worked because Ruth Gordon was 75 and he's like 23 and it should be, but no, it's adorable.
Yeah.
The two of them work. We talk about this often. This is one of our talking points. Do these two have chemistry?
Yeah.
They absolutely do.
I mean, he is very, very pale.
He's very pale.
But it's very much her waking him up and showing what life's about and stuff. But he later on not only learns, but he helps her too. It's just that she's had this plan, which we don't pay attention to in the movie, which is something that the movie and I think Maude is counting on.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want that plan to be messed with. It's not a call for help. It's not I wonder what this person would do in this situation. It's literally like, no, I've decided that's what I want and I'm done.
It's such a shock at the end.
Yeah.
It's for, he's helping her celebrate her 80th birthday, which is when she said she was going to die. And he's made a cake and he's decorated the train car and it's so sweet. And he's going to ask her to marry him. And she says, this is such a wonderful way to go out. He goes, what do you mean? I took the tablets a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, they're not even going to make a thing of her doing it. It's already done. We didn't even see it. And then he's, of course, trying to get her to the hospital. And she doesn't understand what all the fuss is about.
I don't think that. My feeling was that she was like, I would like to go with somebody that I love. And somewhere that it's not going to cause a problem.
And as she puts it, he's saying, I love you. And she goes, yeah, go and love more. She doesn't want him to obsess over her. She doesn't want him to mourn her too much. And it's so sweet and it's so heartbreaking. And you see almost nothing. There's no dying in his arms. We don't even see her die. We just see through a window a doctor talking to him, and then his head just slumps. We know what happened, and then we see, and then there's that big fake out. And I'm sorry, this is a spoiler, people.
We did say at the beginning of every episode.
He's driving his Jaguar hearse at ridiculous speeds. He's driving up this beautiful cliff. I don't know if that's Oceanside Drive or what. The whole thing's in California. And we see the car go over the cliff. And it's like, and I remember that moment, I thought, oh, he's dead. He's done it. He couldn't live. And then the camera pulls back, and there he is standing on the cliff. And I think, this time I thought, of course, one last fake suicide. Only this time, we're the target, not his mother, the world.
Yeah.
And what does he have up there with him? He has the banjo she gave him.
Yeah.
And he's... Oh.
I think also the car, because it was made into a hearse, is a symbol that this is the last one.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to take my fixation with death, and that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I did real quick before we get to the final. So we talked about chemistry. Did they have chemistry? Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think most of it comes from Ruth Gordon, to be fair. Bud Cort is very reserved. He needs to be.
Yeah.
He is very good in this role. I don't want to take anything away from his performance, but the whole relationship is initiated by Maude.
She is the much more active of the two of them. Again, this also sort of fits the manic pixie dream girl, because it's usually the pixie who goes after the guy. But in this case, it's not pixie-ish, and it's not just quirky. She sees something in him that she recognizes. She sees a need that he has, and maybe he fills a need for her too.
Yeah, well, he definitely does.
But you're right. It's her. It's her warmth. It's her charisma.
Yeah, it is. And interestingly, the number one pick for her role was Greta Garbo.
Oh, that's right. Bud Cort wanted her. I read about that. Wow. I wonder if that would have worked.
I don't know, but to me, this is Ruth Gordon. In a lot of her other roles, the Columbo episode I was talking about, she feels very much like this character. And I think a lot of Ruth Gordon came through in this character, which is fine because she does such a good job. There's a lot of depth to this character. Yeah, magic pixie, but you start seeing the things she's done. Admittedly, it includes stealing cars. But you see the artwork. It's like, hey, I gave this a try and enjoyed this for a while. Then I did this. Then I did this. And it's one of those people that lives more life than you can imagine doing. Certainly more than I can imagine.
And she's not like she's not like a dilettante.
No.
Like she does something, I gave up on it. It's like, no, I've done this. I'm satisfied with it. I'm done.
Yeah. And she's just interesting. Like you could spend most of your life finding out what she did in hers. So yeah, definitely have chemistry. Do we buy how they meet? Sure.
Yeah, why not?
It's like she goes to funerals, he goes to funerals. She's like, he looks interesting. I don't. Why is he sitting in the back? Something. She just becomes interested. So sure, why not? Usually, in these films, the couple gets together. This doesn't really have that kind of ending. It's not a sad ending, but it's not a happy ending either.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet.
When I didn't know what it was going to happen, when I thought it was Thelma and Louise. If you haven't seen Thelma and Louise, it's your own damn fault. That was 1990 something. I was like, crap, that was unexpected. Why would he end the movie like that? And of course, I fell for it, basically, is what happened. Which is exactly what he would have wanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So in this case, we usually ask, do we buy the ending? In this case, they don't get together. So do we buy the way the couple ends up?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I always thought, honestly, the way Ruth Gordon chooses to go out, I think that's admirable. She goes out on her terms. She has all her faculties. She's not miserable or rotting away in a nursing home. She's like, I have lived my life with joy, and I want to die on my own terms.
Yeah.
I admire that. Now,
that being said, as we have talked about during this episode, there is some, as Max has pointed, pixie magic in this film.
A little bit.
The scenes with the cop. It's a good thing he's really a clumsy, because that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. He can't even start his own bike.
And let's face it, the way she drives on the curb, she would have. How many people would she have murdered with her car?
Yeah, and just the suicides. Yeah. Things can go wrong if you try it that many times. I have to say, I can't believe I'm saying this. His suicides are hilarious.
Oh, they are.
They're really funny. And they start the movie with it, so you're like, if you don't know anything about this film, and all I knew is it had to do with a younger guy and an older woman, that's all I knew. If you don't know that there's a suicide coming, they hit you right between the eyes right as the film starts. And it really throws you off balance, which I think does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they want you to be prepared for just about anything. So,
yep, they tell you right from the beginning, this is not the movie you thought you were going to see.
No. If you're expecting a regular rom-com, this is so not a regular rom-com.
Oh, yeah.
It is, one of the questions I had in my opening is it tasteful? I think it is.
I think it's extremely tasteful.
If we had seen them having sex, would it have been tasteful? I'm actually going to say possibly not.
I don't know.
Because I don't think it was necessary.
It wasn't necessary is the thing. No. We know what happened. We see both the lead up to it and we see the afterglow, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. And I really don't have any problem with it. Would this have been a couple that lasted a long time? I don't know. Could it have worked? Maybe. I don't know. I believe that people can fall in love with whoever they want, and it can work out. There's a big age gap in my relationship. We've been together for 24 and a half years. So
that's right. And
it's not that big.
That's right. And you are 68 years older than your partner. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I've got from my notes. Do you have anything else?
The only thing, in the afterglow scene when they're together, I love that Harold is blowing bubbles from a bubble wand in the same way that you would see somebody with a cigarette in another different kind of movie. I just think that sums it up. And I love that because it's showing in that moment, he's just subsumed with childlike joy.
Yeah.
He's just so happy.
Yeah.
And you don't see that in the movie for the most part. Most of it, he is unhappy, and you realize this woman makes him happy.
Yeah. I agree. But
But
it's a quirky film.
It is.
And there's an old guy, a young guy, and an old lady, and can we recommend it? Or unless you have anything else, I think we should get to that part that people have been dying for.
Yep.
The Roundup. So, Max, you'd seen this back in the 80s at this Harvard Square, potentially while you were even working on a shift.
Could have been.
How do you feel about this film?
I really like this film. I think it really holds up. I think I like the characters. I think it's funny. I think it's touching. I think it's sweet. And I still think it's weird. It still has some off-kilter, off-beat stuff, given that, this movie's almost 50 years old. Coming up in next year, it'll be 50 years. And I still think it can surprise you. What about you? You had never seen it.
I had never seen it. I was worried it was too weird that I'm just like, I'm just not in the mood for that, Eastern European sock fuzz animated, everybody dies, children are unhappy kind of films. I just was not in that mood. And it was not nearly as strange as I thought it was going to be. Really, the only quote unquote strange part is the relationship of people who are so disparate in ages. I really do believe that Wes Anderson saw this and said, I know what I'm doing for the rest of my career. I'm saying that in a bad way because Wes Anderson brings a lot more to his films than just aping this film.
No. But you can have an influence and still be original.
Yeah, and oh boy, does this film ever an influence. It really feels to me, again, like you could release this film now, and if you released it with like a Wes Anderson film or Garden State or those types of films that, those little indie darlings, this would be an indie darling. It actually, sadly, would probably do better now than it did in 1971.
You'd have to change the soundtrack. I don't think it'd be Cat Stevens. It'd have to be some little indie band no one's ever heard of.
Sufjan Stevens, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And it would probably work just fine. I don't want them to remake this. Please
don't
remake this.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Although Meryl Streep, no. Yeah, I know who we get. Who's the kid who's playing Spider-Man?
Oh, Tom Holland.
Tom Holland and Meryl Streep in Harold and Maude.
Okay, I'm afraid I would watch that. I think they'd be so cute together. But Meryl Streep, yeah.
I would recommend this film. Yep. If you're squicked by the whole idea of a younger guy and an older woman, fine, I can see that. It's a lot funnier than I thought. A lot of quote-unquote comedies of the early 70s I don't find hold up. Like their humor is either based in the times or a style of humor that we don't have anymore, excluding anything British because all that stuff's still funny, except maybe Benny Hill. But it's funny. I laughed out loud. The priest at the end is really funny. The part where he soldiers the soldier is really funny. Maude is often really funny.
She has this great line. when Harold is saying to her, "You get on so well with people," and she goes, "Well, they are my species." I love that.
Yeah. There's one little thing I want to explain, because unfortunately it is an anachronism I think people won't notice. There's one point where they're in an arcade at a beachfront carnival or whatever.
Yeah.
And Harold is at this machine and he's making something.
Oh, yes.
He then gives it to her. And she's like, "This is the best present anyone's given me in a long time." And then with a grin, she throws it into the ocean. And Harold is like about to be like, "Well, what did you do then?" And she says, "I did that, so now I'll always know where it is," which is charming. The thing that he made, they used to have these little machines, and they made there were these little aluminum discs, and they were supposed to be a lucky charm or a lucky medal. And you paid $0.25, and you could stamp whatever word you want or words you wanted into that disc. And that's what that is. I have one, because locally there's a place that has old arcade machines, and they had one of those disc print. And I was like, where did they find the blanks? I'll never know. But I was like, I put in, which is now $1. But I put in my $1 and made one of those. I had one for decades. I'd made one when I was a kid at Woolworths, if you remember what those are.
Oh yeah. But
if you don't know what it is, you might be like, what's going on? I don't get it. So he's making a little medal. He probably put Harold Loves Maude in it or something like that.
No, she says it says. Harold loves Maude, and she looked at him and says, "And Maude loves Harold."
Yeah, I think real quick, I don't think they have the same kind of love.
That's probably true, but that happens in a lot of relationships. Love isn't always identical.
I don't think hers is really romantic. I think she loves him as a friend. She loves him as she would have him as a partner, but I don't think that she loves him the way that he loves her. I'm not saying that's a different amount. I just don't think it's the same.
Well, it's also different. She's obviously his first love.
Yeah.
And he is not hers.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still very sweet. We recommend it. But would we recommend what we're going to see next week? Because what is that?
Well, before we do that, we should get to a little business.
We switched business because of a comment from one of our listeners.
That's right. Thank you, Cheese Boy.
Yeah, Cheese Boy. So
yep.
We'll do business now because it was suggested it made more sense at the end of the show. So, Max, if you would take care of that, please.
I will indeed. You can, of course, find an entire catalog of our back episodes at our website, maxmikemovies.com. You can find us on the podcast app of your choice, under Max Mike Movies, Apple, Google. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. Probably others that we're not going to tell you about because it's a secret.
You just don't know.
We're also on the medias of social, on the Facebook and Twitter under Max Mike Movies. And if you have any suggestions, ideas, questions, comments you would like us to take possession of and use as our own,
trademark,
giving you no credit ever.
Or a cut of the profits.
Yep, profits. You can email us at us@maxmikemovies.com. But next week, we're going a bit more contemporary with a movie that caused a bit of a stir when it came out, I guess, just in terms of the casting, the writing, the director, and who was in it. We're going to be checking out Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, cool.
And,
yeah, a friend of mine's cousin actually directed that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
I've been meaning to watch it. Now I have an excuse. Yeah. Crazy Rich
Asians, yes. Which one of the stars in it is, of course, everyone's favorite, Fiji Water. She's terrific. And
no.
Poland Springs?
I think you're thinking of Aquanetta and you're still wrong.
Yes, Aquafina. Sorry, yes. It is.
Aquafina, Hairspray, sure, but a star? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do many, many more such jokes next time.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.